In this video, I'll tell you about the functions in Script Action Library. So I have like example blueprints. They have some of the functions and variables, and we start from the functions. So the first function is add multiple functions. So if I add it, press Script Action, or I can add like a mark maybe all of them. So I'll mark them, and I will use functions, and I can add multiple functions, and then I can specify the name like first, second. As you can see, it has been added. So if I open these two blueprints, we see the first, second. All right, this is possible to remove as well functions in bulk. So if I go again, mark all of them, go to functions, and want to remove functions in bulk, I can just remove first and second. So basically I will just revert, but this here we can clear out, click clean. So it's now removed. If I go back, we see my function is removed from here. Another one is check functions for return nodes. It's very actually interesting because sometimes you have a functions but not without return node. So here I will just use this one, and I will use test function, and this test function will have return node. So I can remove even output, but it still has return. And now when I compile, and then I will check for return node, I will scripted actions, functions, and check functions for return nodes. We see these functions don't have return nodes, but EA build, and if I remove it, press delete, it now will display three functions. So scripted actions, we see now three functions. Great. We can actually ask for descriptions too. So if I check for description in the functions, we see two of them actually don't have, but test function we see this one has, right? But if I remove it, save it, and now check it again, it will display three functions because they do not have any descriptions. Functions can have tooltips, and it can be also very useful. So I have a check functions for tooltip. Editables must have tooltip. So the functions has editables. We can edit. For example, if I press it now, obviously all functions have tooltips. All right, we have a display number of nodes in order. So this one will display the number of nodes in the function. I'll quickly show you. So you have 7 number of nodes in all of the functions. Is it because 4, 5, 6, 7? And if I add like or remove this one, it will display 6. So let me see. Number of nodes in functions, it will display now 6. All right, that's perfect. And now we have a function display all function names. It's a very simple function. It will just display all of the function names directly here. So you have a list. It includes as well all of the actors that inherits from the source code. We can remove the event graph names if you know actually like if there are something, but keep that in mind. If you remove from empty actor and you have a 0, it might be a little bit problematic for you. But for example, if I add like a blue actor and you don't want to use a graph at all, I use test one here. And now if I use it, use scripted actions, I will use remove event graphs. If I open it now, as you can see, there are 0 event graphs. You have to add manually because this type will basically remove all of the event graphs. In this category, we'll talk about the graphs. I have one graph. I'll add another one, new graph, I will call it. We can as well create a new one, test. So you have 3 separate graphs. I've created 6 functions for it. The first is check if custom event exists. So it will check across all of the graphs and look for custom events. So I'll use custom event, and I will say customy. I will now compile, and I will try to use the function check if custom event exists. I'll go here, use the scripted actions. I will use graph, check if custom exists. I will use customy. We see it exists. That's perfect. All right, we can get graph and function names, another functionality. So if I go to graph and I will get graph and function names, it will show all of the functions including user construction script, but it will not show all the inherited like in the function lab. So this is good, especially if you want to narrate it down and don't get the list of all inherited functions, like in the function category that I show you with, there is a display of function names. It will show inherited. This one, no. The previous one you will not have, but I know that I have a graph that is called test, but I will call it ABC. And now, if I go again, we see it has been added, ABC, so it's no longer a test, so it works. There's option to use remove default graph. So for example, if I go back here, I have an event graph, which is default event graph. If you don't want it, you can use remove default graph, another function, so graph, remove default graph. If I press it, you will be able to see that actually I've removed the default graph. That is not possible normally, and now it's just event graph, and you can easily remove all of the graphs if you don't want to use it. Because if you open any blueprints and even end mode, it will have an event graph, and that event graph cannot be used because it's grayed down, right? So this one you can override engine settings. There's rename graph by a name, so I show it as well to tell you about remove all bookmarks. For example, when we have a bookmarks, I will create a bookmark. This is the new tab. I will say 1, open here, I have function, I will call the bookmark 2. And if you have it, you can we can quickly switch between. But for example, if you don't want it and you want to remove all the bookmarks, you can close it, script actions. I think it's important to close because sometimes it's not refreshing. Go to the graph mode and remove all of the local bookmarks. So now if I go back again, we see all bookmarks are empty, so they do not longer exist in our file. And yeah, I forgot about one main function. Check if function exceeds number of nodes. For example, we have a complex functions, but you do not want to exceed some number of nodes. We can go to test and use it. So I will use functions, and now I'll just try. So our max expected number is, for example, 2. So it will display all the functions that have more than that, right? Because test fn has more than 2 nodes, right? It has like 4. But if I set like, for example, 4, I will check it again. I will use the scripted asset actions, and now check if function exceeds number of nodes. I will set, for example, 4. We will see all workflows haven't surpassed number of trivial nodes if some of the functions exceed an amount. Okay, now I'll tell you about the variable nodes. So in my test.bb file, we have 4 variables without any actually changes. But if I go here, use scripted actions nodes, I will go to variables. I can use expose variables, remove unused variables, which is obviously very nice. So if I have any variables that is not used, I will create, and maybe not a function, but a variable, like new var. I will press it, and now if I click it now, go to variables, I can remove all of the, so you see 2 have been removed in this piece, so now I don't have any of it. That's pretty much great. And another one from variable is just to replace variable references. So for example, I will create a 4 again, and I will try to replace 3 with 4. So this time I will go to test.bb, I will go to variables, I will go to replace variable references, so old variable name will be to 5. So this time, so that you have to, okay, 3 and 4, sorry, so I'll just go as 3 variables, replace variable reference to 3 and 4. And now if I refresh it, open it up again, we see now it was refreshed. So yeah, this way we can do it. Another one is get variable index. It's pretty simple. We can get the variable index and then try to use that index for our purposes. So if I get variable index, for example 3, it will get that 3 is 2 because it starts from 0. That's perfect. When you go to another, we can try to even use some variable. I can export variables to spawn, so the 2 will be exposed to spawn. And now I can go another one, the cinematics will be 1, exposed to cinematics, and then I can go again to variables and exports to editable, and then I will just use 3 and press it, and now I will just save it, And if I go again now to the SBP file, we see this one is exposed to cinematics, this one is exposed to spawn, and this one is instance editable. So this one allows us to do it. And keep that in mind, obviously, if I create a variable that is no longer used, I can use the script action variable and set property for not used variables and set deprecated. So if I use now, save, open it up again, SBP file, we know that variable wasn't used, it will have marked as deprecated. And the last category will be class, when we can compile blueprints, reparent, set blueprint class settings. So if I have a class, I will save it first. Scripted actions library, I can check if blueprint scans, we can compile, we can hide all categories, and even set blueprint category. We have even possibility to check all of the data, like is utility blueprint, display name, description. So if I set description, press test. If I go now again, go to class settings, it will say test. If I change display name, go to class, display name AAA, and I will go again, we see it's now again. I like hide categories because, for example, if you want to add a category, if you want to add an actor to a level, we see all of this data. Sometimes you don't want to use it, so we can hide some categories. So for example, if I want to add blueprint hide categories, I can make it like to hide impact, for example. And when I do it, press OK. Class settings, we see impact. And if I go again here, we don't see actually this functionality here. It's just hidden, so it's more comfortable for us to adjust settings. I prepared even a function that will hide all of the categories, except actor, for example, if you want tagging. So if I press hide all categories except actor, it will add automatically all of it here. I will remove it. Now if I compile, go again, and put it on the level, we see it doesn't have anything except default and actor. So all of this data has disappeared. So the data have disappeared, it's only hidden, and we can easily just adjust our variables like that were exposed for developers. But if you want to bring something, for example, something is needed, you would like to change the collision, you can always delete, press compile, go back, and then we see that category of collision have returned. In the meantime, obviously, I added like make blueprint child in modified. We can check if it's some sort of the categories. We can compile if you want to refresh. For example, some of them are not compiled. You want to refresh, you can use script actions and then use class, and then we can compile blueprints. It will compile all of it, so we kind of refresh it externally. If you want to change something else, or you want to reparent the class, because I added as well reparenting, we can get the information. So check if that is on the blueprint. There is possibility to reparent to some class if you want to, which is very nice, especially if you're migrating other projects. And then again, maybe I will show it in some of the examples, the reparenting. So if there is an actor, I will show actor. And if I want to change this actor to reparenting, I will just reparent, and now reparent it to not actor because it's already actor, but character. I'll use the character node, I'll press, and we see it's already like changed to character and change the icon. And you have many actors, you want to reparent them dynamically because it's not possible by using bulk property matrix option. You can use it. We can check if it's utility blueprint. It's no. We can check if it's data only blueprint. It's true because it doesn't have from C++ class. If it's a constant, it's false. We can check as well class setting, display name, namespace, maybe mark children modified, so it will have this asterisk, and then it will, for example, prompt up the notification for source service control software like Perforce, like SVN, and we can even hide all categories like I show you. But if I change class settings, this is the very nice tool. You can say deprecate, you can generate abstract class, you can say this, and if you have many actors, we can basically use this in order to make it in the bulk. And if I hide here like collision, it will apply all of the changes. So if I go back now, open the new blueprint and go to class settings, we see all of the data that we have provided and hide categories. So it's pretty easy, especially if you have multiple actors. You can just mark them like this and then use scripted actions and just set the data, especially if you want to implement changes across all of especially if you want to implement all of the class settings across multiple actors.